What time is it? It's time for another Every Other Wednesday.
Good position there, Pete. Welcome, everybody. Oh, we're so quiet all of a sudden.
Welcome one person who's joined us.
There are more guests, no, more panelists and guests today. Oh my
Hello, welcome. Yes, you are in the right place. Normally you only see 2, 3, or 4 of us, but sometimes 5. But today you have 7. So
we have to tell our guests that the 4 of us have not been together for quite a while because of
right.
work. So this once we decided that you were going to be our guests, we all had to jump
change all our plans. We turned down speaking engagements, all kinds of things.
Exactly.
We'll be invoicing our guests for the difference.
That's right. Yes.
Richard, do we have a question for everybody for the chat
We
box?
do, everyone. Yeah. So welcome, everyone. It's and Mike is telling us what day it is. Oh, good. Carol is here. We can begin. Yes. So here's the question. Our guests today are the authors of a new book that they'll be telling us about that is entitled WTF. And we all know what that can stand for, but we want to know in the chat box, what do you think WTF can stand for besides the obvious? Okay. So go ahead and give us some ideas in the chat. It can mean welcome to Florida, which isn't being said as much anymore these days as it used to be. Sorry. But then there is, it can also mean a wild turkey flight, or also when turkeys fly. Those are some things that I've said, that I've read. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, yeah. What have you got there, Mike?
Where's the fun?
Where's the fun? Work towards fun. Where's the food? I did a little, that part of my research, you know, we do lots and tons of preparation and research for this episode, to show every episode. And one of those things that I did was to see there must be an airport somewhere in the world whose code is WTF. Well, they got ahead of that one. There's not. There's not.
What?
You do know, I tell a story in my presentations about the Wisconsin Tourism Federation, who literally, true story, Google it, 13 years ago, came up with a new logo, WTF, and it lasted for 2 weeks because the experience was, they are now the Tourism Federation of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Some amazing marketing consultant.
The World Taekwondo Federation is now just known as World Taekwondo.
So I am a black belt in ITF Taekwondo, which is the International Taekwondo Federation. Yeah. It's WTF, World Taekwondo. So.
Okay, we could talk all day, but why don't we get started? So
there you go.
Officially, welcome everybody. I'm so excited for today's show. As you can see, we have a lot of guests, and I'm excited for them to introduce themselves in a couple of minutes. It is July 12th, 2023. Mike is here, our official time and date keeper. I'm Jeff Tobe. I am Coloring Outside the Lines professional speaker in the area of, I was going to say Pittsburgh, but that's not what I mean. In the area of customer experience, living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We outnumber all of you today, as you'll find out. So why don't we all introduce ourselves first, guys? Sanjay?
My name is Sanjay Nath. I'm based just outside of Toronto, Ontario in Oakville, and I am an author and speaker specializing in performance and leadership. Mr. Kerr.
Michael Kerr coming to you as usual from Canmore, Alberta in the Canadian Rockies. I speak and write about workplace culture and humor in the workplace, and I'm the author of The Jerk-Free Workplace and The Humor Advantage, Why Some Businesses Are Laughing All the Way to the Bank. Mr. Richard.
Hi, I'm Richard Haddon, and I live in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm a speaker and an author, and I'm going to try to talk as fast as Mike and tell you that I've written Contented Cows Give Better Milk, Contented Cows Move Faster, Contented Cows Still Give Better Milk, and Rebooting Leadership. And I speak on employee engagement, retention, and recruitment.
Excellent. Wow, we got that done quickly. Thank you, guys. As I said, I'm very excited to have our guests today. And as was alluded to in the preamble, they are, I think, in the process of writing a book, or they have written the book. We'll find out in a minute after they introduce themselves. And really, WTF, as you'll find out, has a lot to do with corporate culture. All 3 of these guys are working in the arena of culture, as you'll find out. So why don't, John, why don't you go first in introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, yes, I have 3 books published to date. The first one was called Get Weird. The second one was called Weirdos in the Workplace. There you go.
And autographed in 2001. That's how long we've known each other.
And the third one I had the pleasure of having co-authored with Dave Baker here on the screen, and it's the Everything HR Kit. And they pulled me out of retirement and asked me to write a 4th book I'm not really retired. I just left as a CEO of the Greater Pittsburgh Auto Dealers Association. And prior to that, 25 years as a professional speaker, trainer, consultant.
Excellent. Well, that's a good segue to Dave. Dave?
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me here today. This ought to be a lot of fun. Never had the chance to join you guys in the past, but
You don't know Sanjay. It's not always fun.
Yeah. I am Dave Baker, co-author with John on the Everything HR kit that I have behind me here. For about 40 years, most of my life has been building HR departments all around the world. And about 20 years ago, I became a partner with one of the largest venture capital firms in the country, and there had the opportunity to build from scratch 37 not only companies, but their entire people function, and heavily built around culture and best practices in that vein. And being surrounded by entrepreneurs day in and day out, I decided to try and venture out on my own, and launched Human Capital Advisors in 2008, and we've never looked back. So we do both HR consulting, leadership and management training, and we have a very large division that does executive search and recruitment. So should be fun to engage with you all today.
Excellent. Thank you for being here. And in the green room, we were teasing Pete about being younger than Sanjay. So here he is, the baby himself, Pete Schramm.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate all that great cultural welcoming. Isn't this what we're teaching about how to make everybody feel included? Pete Schramm from Western Pennsylvania, grew up on a farm, went to college, played basketball, track, traveled around the world a couple of times, built some robots for the Army, and realized that people make the difference in your lives. And it was when I was working at a big defense contractor that I said, there's got to be an easier way to bring people together to form intentional, sustainable connections and relationships. And there wasn't a real solution out there. So I said, all right, I'm going to start a company and we're going to do this. And then I Googled how to start a company and how to do this. So fast forward 2 years, scaling the company. Team got up to about 22 people this summer, and it is exciting. So employee connection, retention software, building out your personal board of advisors to amplify productivity, well-being, and belonging. Author, speaker, and sponge. And you're like, sponge, what the heck does that mean? John and Dave have taught me so much over the last couple of years, and I owe a lot of thanks to both of these guys and to the individuals that they've introduced me to.
We've often said that you're a sponge.
Yeah.
Like Bob. Okay, I want to ask the first question because I've just met these gentlemen, but they appear to have the credentials of riffraff. So I want to know how are you three connected? How did you guys come together to be buddies?
When I started my first company in 1985, Dave Baker was building the HR department at WQED, where Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, National Geographic, and they did not have an HR department until he came on board, and he hired me to do an executive retreat to do a strategic plan. I think we probably knew each other before that, but that's the first time business-wise we were affiliated, and he's followed me ever since.
Yeah, Pete, were you born in 1988? Yeah, okay, just wondering. And how did you meet Pete?
Pete, how did I meet you?
He's trying to forget. So, John, if you go back to your emails and search, you'd probably find about 74 emails of, hey, we should meet here. We were scheduling a cigar event in Cranberry.
Right.
There was like 7 people that were going to be there. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's going to think I don't have my stuff together at all. I'm so disorganized, because as soon as one variable would change, there was, guys, no less than 53 emails. It was nuts. So then we met over a cigar. A couple other people said, hey, you should talk to that John guy. He knows about HR things, and he's kind of, speaking, and he's sort of almost retired. So he has time to talk to people now. And I don't think John could get rid of me now, even if he tried.
Love it. So what is the status of the book, guys? Where are you with it?
We have a literary agent out shopping it as we speak. Ironically, McGraw-Hill was this close to buying it, and they shut down their business division entirely 2 weeks ago and let everybody go.
I heard that.
So our literary agent is back shopping it again, and we're waiting for her to let us know the good news. We've had a number of revisions to the proposal as a result of McGraw-Hill's perspective on it. They were very helpful to us in terms of making it more readable and entertaining, and so we're still working with our agent.
WTF did McGraw-Hill do? Speaking of WTF, what does it stand for?
Winning the fight.
For what?
For the workplace of the future. So there's 2 WTFs in there, workplace of the future, new rules and new tools for the new world of work.
So it's WTF squared, which is very
WTF
cool.
squared, yes.
I love that.
Bracket WTF bracket squared, because WTF squared would be WTF.
Oh, no.
So
By
so
the
can
way-
you can you tell us succinctly, why did you write this book? What are you hoping people get out from
Well,
this
Pete,
book?
you
From your
want to
message?
take that, Pete?
Yeah. So Mike and everybody else, there's lots of things out there talking about the problems, right? Oh my gosh, COVID changed our lives. The turnover tsunami, the great resignation, problem. Okay, hey, here's some things that you could do to fix this. Okay, you talked about those briefly. So what we said is, all right, what if we talk about a little bit about the problem, a lot about the solution, and arm you with those new tools and rules tools, right, of what you can do. So think of this as your guide on this journey of how to attract people, retain people, and engage people. That's what it's all about. So you can benefit, beginning of your career, middle of your career, end of your career. If you're really good at it, here's some refreshers. If you're not so good at it, here's what good looks like. And you're going to enjoy some of the stories along the way, even if you don't care about people.
And the biggest differentiator of our book is it's going to be laden with QR codes to access a toolbox that Dave Baker is our guru on tools, because he's developed hundreds of them over the years and reimagined them for this new era of work. And so it'll be a living and growing document. If you buy the book, you'll always have access to the toolbox.
Very cool.
Hey, give us an example of a tool. What do you mean?
Dave, you take that one.
Well, here's a really good example, and especially in the world of startups, a lot of organizations, especially entrepreneurs, decide, okay, I've got this really cool idea, and now I want to go staff my organization. They have no idea, number one, how to hire people, what's a good person to hire, right? And on a third contingent, what do you need to retain that person? Because just can't pay them, right? So Pete was pretty wise to create this kind of configuration of how you go through all the various elements to it. Well, I've got literally hundreds of tools that I bring to the table. And one of those is, okay, so you've started a new company and you want to hire somebody. Here's the process. We literally walk you through the entire process, start to finish. And that sets everything up and leads into a number of different things. Culture, which you guys are all experts on, is so critically important as we then define, you're building this company, what culture are you going to have in order to not only, manage those individuals, but as you all know, what do you do to attract people into your organization? That culture, especially today, after the pandemic, that culture is absolutely critical to success, right? And so our tools help those individuals who've never done this before really get off and running. Yeah, it's also, and what I really like about what Pete's kind of the architect here, if you will. What Pete did was he came up with this QR code idea of all these tools that we've created. And they're evergreen. So as we continuously change them and we're updating them based on the latest elements that we've researched and are bringing to the table, all those elements, all those tools will be continuously brought up to speed. So, so all of a sudden someone comes up with some really neat, cool idea and uses some technology in order to attract people. We'll have that in that tool set on the front end. So it's and there are Pete, how many tools right now?
164.
Say again?
164, 164.
Wow.
And that's only on 100 pages, right?
Yeah, the book, the manuscript right now is about 350 pages,
Wow.
about 120,000 words. So
Wow.
there's a lot of infographics in there, pictures. We gauge the success of the book on, I don't have a book, oh, here's one handy, but how often are people doing this, right? And it's postable, right? So if it's postable, people are referencing it, then that's a good thing, right? And whenever you guys are speaking, you're probably like, oh yeah, whenever people are taking pictures of the screens or me or writing down, right? So that's the idea, is to add value and for people to take action.
So let's talk about the workplace of the future. Everybody, because of everything you mentioned, Pete, are looking for the new normal. What does that look like from you guys' perspective?
Yeah, John, you want to talk about it first, then I can go. And I want to hear from the rest of you guys on this one too.
Absolutely. Well, the questions that people ask today are not one of my, the normal interview questions. The first question out of the mouth of young people today is, do I have to come to work? And I know that sounds weird, but I mean, physically, do I have to get in my car and go somewhere? And it's kind of if you'd have asked that question 20 years ago, they'd throw you out on your ear and say, good luck with that.
And sadly, some still are.
Yes. So that's kind of the culture that we're looking at in terms of people today. Now, granted, there are a lot of jobs you can't phone in or Zoom in. I mean, you can't deliver health care on the computer other than diagnostics. But we're looking at a different mindset of worker, and we're trying to get companies to understand that it's not about the money. I mean, yes, you expect to get paid, but how a person defines whether they are happy or not at work is usually about the boss. And I know that's not even a word that we should have in our vernacular anymore, because the day-to-day relationship you have with your immediate team of people really determines whether or not you're a happy camper or you're not. And that is not HR's responsibility. One of my biggest peeves is when companies think they can delegate or relegate culture and motivation to HR. Yeah. HR has nothing to do with that other than fixing the boss and giving the tools and the training and the processes in order to create a culture of belonging and motivation and performance. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Right.
So what is it? It's not one size fits all.
Right.
It's a little bit different for everybody. And I think it's the piece that it has to be constantly able to change and able to flex. And something that John's taught me over time is we don't necessarily need to pay people for what do you call it, John? Butt time or seats time? Yeah. I know it's less politically correct.
Butt time, right. Outcome based.
Outcome based, but that's the idea of, hey, here's what you have to get done. Set those goals and expectations, roles and responsibilities. And Mike, here's what this looks like for you. It might take you 4 hours this week. It might take you 44 hours this week. It might take you 72 hours this week, but it goes back to those expectations at the beginning. And the other piece is, why are people leaving organizations? Or disconnect with their manager, and they don't know where they're going and growing professionally. So if we can get that part right, and if you look at McKinsey's study, I think it's more than half of the top 10 reasons people are voluntarily leaving, they're people problems.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm guessing from the way you prefaced this, that a huge underlying theme of this is, since you referenced COVID and all the changes that have been happening in the last few years in society, that one of the underlying themes is this constant change that we're going to be in, right? And uncertainty, building a workplace culture in times of huge uncertainty. Is that fair to say?
Yes, and rapid change.
Yeah.
It's a theme that's come up many times over the years with Every Other Wednesday, is this notion of the healthier workplaces dictate the outcome, not the process. So if you can get your job done at 2 a.m, and it takes you half an hour to do what you would have taken 8 hours to do during the day by, putting your butt in the seat, I don't care. If I'm a big picture thinker, I want the outcome, not the process. My new mantra that I've been saying, that I've been using this both personally and professionally, is let it go. When we get so attached to a particular form, but let it go, everything's transient and water will find its level. So if we're so stuck in, this is the model, you have to have your butt in from 8 to 5 and eventually things are going to level out. And if we are more flexible, the old cliche, the mighty oak gets struck down in the big storm, but the willow bends with the wind. And the more we can be able to do that, the more relevant it is for our people, the less stress we have, the lower lower turnover, higher job satisfaction, all that other stuff.
Wait, I want Pete wants to sing. Go ahead, Pete. I saw the look in your face, right, when he said, let it go.
Best chat ever. Best chat
We're probably
ever.
gonna have to
Quoting Elsa.
She's quoting Elsa.
Now, when it comes to the whole idea of, are we going to, and the way that I put it often is, are we looking for attendance or are we looking for outcomes? Are we looking for, time put in, or are we looking for results put out? And so I think talking about this, I think there are people who are in leadership in companies that are never going to come around to that. Now, at some point, they're going to be leaving the workplace. I think we have to constantly be talking about this so that this does not become the norm of, you have to be showing face time to get stuff done, because there's still a lot of resistance to that. But I think we just have to keep talking about it so that people see the value of what we're talking about. The other thing that I want to bring up is, when I'm out there talking and when I'm speaking with audiences and when I'm trying to do research on this, I hear so much whining from people who are in management positions about, well, this is not the way it was when and I don't like this, and I don't like that people want to work from home, and I don't like that. You don't have to like it. I mean, it's like when somebody put broccoli in front of you when you were 5 years old and told you to eat it. You said what? You said, I don't like that. What did your parents say? You don't have to like it. Just eat it. And I tell folks all the time, quit the whining, because the organizations that adapt to what's going on are the ones who are succeeding. The ones that whine about it are just whining. Yeah. What do you think about that?
You have to have a culture of trust. And I remember hearkening back to the days of the 80s when flex time was introduced for the first time. Dave, you'll remember this. All the managers are going, how are we going to trust our workers to work? I have to watch them work. And how do I know they're going to actually work? Well, are they working? And I mean, this is another version of flex time from 30 years ago, but now it's forced on us. And going back,
and I think it's conceptually, whatever the changes are, we can whine about it or we can respond to it in a productive way. And I just think the whining is not productive.
I mean, just as an aside, guys, I hope that, Pete, you probably noticed that Stephen Rayfield gave you a suggestion for publishing if you're interested. He has a lot of experience with American Management Association. So it's in the chat box if you want it. We have a few questions I want to refer to, guys.
Yeah.
Jennifer asked, this is great what you're talking about, but how do you do this with hourly employees?
This is not one size fits all. So again, we go back to this piece. These are principles, opinions, ideas, and they're not going to fit into every single place, right? Whenever I was building 30-foot tall missile launchers, you can't really do that WFX, right? Working from anywhere. So there are certain things that you have to be in the facility. Now, how do you approach that? Do you make it very clear? A lot of controversy around these things. You get paid more if you're in the office versus if you're remote. But to make it very clear during the incoming process, right, the pre-onboarding interview, is this in the office? Is this hybrid? Is this remote? Because what some employers are doing is coming in and say, hey, yeah, we're creative. Until it's time for you to be in the office every day, like we're changing our mind. And that's where it gets to be really, really tricky. So yeah, the comment in the chat, some people are not able to work at off hours. Some people are not able to work at home. That's entirely true.
But that doesn't mean you can't make work at work fun and pleasant and engaging. In other words, the culture again of being physically present in the workplace still has to be a positive thing. And there are so many tools in that we are talking about to introduce that kind of a mindset from day one. Onboarding, or what we used to call orientation, is not about policies and procedures. It's about instilling values. And that first day, that first week on the job can make or break that relationship.
And it's about being creative too, because as some of you know, I run 7 FedEx routes. And so I have drivers. I have a fleet of trucks and 15 drivers. And so we pay them hourly. But this is one of the things I have a big issue with, because if a guy is more efficient, right? If a guy can do a route in 6 hours, it takes another guy 10 hours. Why is he getting paid less? So because I run the show and I can be creative, and I think I like to use common sense, I go in and go, okay, we're going to give each guy what we consider to be a fair day's worth of work. And so I'm going to pay them daily. So I'm going to go, okay, you're whatever, we'll pick numbers. You get $10 an hour, you work 8 hours a day. I'm going to pay you $80. I'm going to give you fair work. If it takes you 12 hours, that's not my problem. If it takes you 6 hours, go home and enjoy your kids. So there's a way you can actually take an hourly and still give people an incentive for being efficient.
Yep.
Yep. Well, Richard, one of the things that you made comment of, I think, is kind of Darwin's theory of management, right?
Yeah.
Only the stronger are going to survive. And if you don't adapt, quite honestly, those that are adapting are going to run over top of everybody else, right?
Well, and we're seeing it already. It's happening already.
Yep.
Thank you, Dave. I love Rob's comment in the chat. This is I've never thought of this metaphor, but he says, imagine if you're sat nav. So now Rob speaks British. I'll translate for you. I also speak British by marriage. Imagine if your sat nav, your GPS system, whinged on, which is whine, about missing a freeway exit instead of recalculating it. It gets old quick. I'll never be able to think of that in any other way now.
That's so awesome.
That's great.
That is correct. Yeah.
So-
if your GPS just complained about it rather than recalculating. I love that idea, just recalculating and readapting to whatever needs to happen.
So on that note of recalculating and people resisting some of this stuff, besides the obvious, well, we've always done it this way, and we don't want to change, what other obstacles do you see when you're talking to people that are preventing them from changing the way they need to lead?
Time, expertise, resources, prioritization, people problems, other priorities, made up.
So not very much at all.
Yeah, I see you're having a hard time coming up with anything, Pete.
Well, you just said that's the way we've always done it. This is a button that people have to wear at one of my former clients on the first day. So that everybody knows that person's a new employee, but we are reminded that we don't ever say that's the way we've always done it. I've got another one that I love. This is an entrepreneurial company, and their theme is that we put our butt on the line. Now, one of my other clients' companies decided their culture really wasn't that. It was really more cover your ass.
I like that. Perfect. So we got a little bit of an insight into the book through your the introduction that you sent us. And one of the myths that you talked about that caught my attention was diversity plus freedom equals innovation, which is the way a lot of organizations have thought in the past. You're saying it's a myth. Tell us about that.
No, it's not a myth, but the concept of diversity is not race, sex, national origin, and religion. It is individuality. So, and that is so much true today, more so than it even was back when, before the pandemic, if I could say that. It's not all white men think and act alike. Not all lesbians think and act alike. So the LGBTQIA plus movement, in a sense, is creating more silos. And this is my philosophy, maybe not yours. But I think when we start respecting individuality, that's when the creativity and productivity go through the roof. And we shouldn't be measuring it by physical features.
So are you saying ignore labels, John? Is that
What's that?
Are you saying ignore labels?
Don't have them.
Okay.
Yeah.
It reminds me, I was part of an event in the late 90s called the Last Conference on Racism, because that was a term we used back then in the 90s, the last conference on racism. And the philosophy behind it was, it's the last one, because if we keep talking about it, it's still an issue. But right now we don't kind of go, oh, you like this flavor of ice cream, I like that flavor of ice cream, let's have a conference about it. It just is. That's your preference. That's whatever it is. That's part of it. So as long as we keep bringing these issues to the forefront, they are issues. So when we can just let them be, whether it be people voting, and it was only a certain class and a certain gender and a certain age that could vote, and now it's just we don't talk about it anymore because it's no longer an issue. So I appreciate what you're saying on that, John. Is the more we bitch and whine and complain about it, the more of it of an issue it becomes. And when we just are you know, in a sense, that's what we want to get to, this blindness of just, you're a person. Can you help us in this particular job based on your skill set, based on the way your mind works, based on your empathy, based on the characteristics and attributes you bring? Then you're part of the team, period.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, and I think it goes back to respect. It really does come down to respect. You know, we can put all those silos and all those various, you know, kind of segments together of the population, and you're never going to make everybody happy.
Right.
But I think that if we all respected each other, right, if you start there, now all of a sudden all the pieces start to come together, you know, in a natural way, right? If you enter in with that philosophy that you're going to respect everybody, that's what changes all the cultures inside of organizations, right?
Pretty sad we have to teach that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Kind of bizarre.
Also
Well,
sad,
well,
it's
and we
also-
do, because we
Somebody
know
does
for a
do it.
lot of people out there, they are dealing with a lot of racism. I mean, my God, you just have to spend a few minutes on Facebook and it's unbelievable.
Yeah. What's scary in an organization, and the guys that I here know that I've been working with a large governmental organization and 8,000 employees, and you know, everyone pays lip service to this, but then behind the scenes they're just doing what they've always done. And
It's a program. It's just a program.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's what I was just going to say, John. They say DEI, oh, just another program. It'll die out soon enough. you
Flavor
know?
of the month.
You
Exactly.
have to have it's a mindset, not a program.
Right.
Yeah, and it's really also culturally in the whole society. It's not just about the organization, because if you come from a society that's one way and then you go into a company that's another way, then when you come back home, it's very jarring. So yeah.
Well, and going back to John's book, which I own, by the way, I didn't know that was you, John. It's somewhere on one of my bookshelves here. Your weird book.
Elvis is reading it at the
Yeah,
moment.
weird, right? I mean, to me, when we talk about diversity and innovation and creativity in a workplace culture, we want to encourage the weirdos. We want to hire weirdos, right? We want to hire people that think differently than us, so we're not suffering from groupthink. And so when we think of diversity through that lens, we're also talking about people that just, you know, that they don't quite speak the way everyone else does around here when they express their opinions, their views, they maybe dress a little differently. They don't kind of fit into those cultural norms that we've
You know,
had.
Michael, what I have was a list of what are called weirdisms in the book. And one of the weirdisms is that the more weirdos you hire, the fewer you have.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
That's great. By the way, I think I should point out, although Michael was saying that, you know, he didn't realize that with you with his book and he was sucking up to you. Michael's not a bigger thinker. He was trying to get more tech savvy. He thought it said "get wired," and that's why he bought it. So
That's why truth is out. Thanks, Sanjay, for revealing that.
The other-
Thanks.
under the bus.
Under the bus.
On the DEIB, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging is to talk the talk and walk the walk. And a lot of folks will say, hey, we're going to do this DEI thing. And maybe you check the box with a training. It's like, okay, great. And then what happens afterwards? And then a lot of organizations will have like an employee resource group, like, hey, let's grab pizza on a Zoom and hop in a meeting and do a Zoom call like once every 2 months. Great. What's happening after that? So it's whenever we can actually do things, right? And leadership is taking action on this, showing that it is cool to be inclusive. It is cool to have, I like to say, a culture of cohesive collaboration, right? Of diversity of ideas, diversity of thoughts, diversity that we can see and that we can't see, and being cognizant of it. And if we start off with that respect, like Dave said, we're able to build trust. What happens whenever we do that? Then the well-being goes up. We didn't talk about self-respect, but that's a huge piece of this as well. Burnout, stress, all that. We all know about how it's killing people. And what else is it doing? Well, if our people aren't here, then it's going to be tough to get the work done, right? So the respect of self can then grow into respect of others. And I think to Mika's question there, how do you propose organizations do this? To walk it, to talk it, to start small and listen to people and let them know what you're going to do moving forward. You don't have to have all the answers, but you do have to have some consistent and persistent communications, or else you're going to be worse off by doing the wrong thing than having done nothing.
And don't you think that sense of belonging is one of the keys to all of this?
Absolutely.
If people don't feel like they belong, regardless of their age, their experience, where they fit in the organizational tree, if you don't have a sense of belonging, why on earth would you feel loyal to your company? Why on earth would you contribute your ideas, your passion?
And that's to piggyback on that. When people feel that sense of belonging, they'll give you a very long leash. So even if you're wrong, or you screw up, or you mess up, or whatever, it is, if they feel that, you know, if your kid drops a glass, no big deal, you pick up the glass and you move on, right? Whereas if you feel slighted, or you feel like you're getting cheated, or they're out to get you, then every little action you see is put under a microscope, and it's blown out of proportion, and it's misinterpreted, and it just further divide. So the more we get, and that comes down to the big umbrella we always talk about, which is culture. How do we make people feel included? How do we make people feel special? How do they get to go to work rather than have to go to work?
Let me suggest also, because I've been facilitating a large onboarding mastermind group, HR professionals with a interest in onboarding. And one of the things they're talking about is, you know, that sense of belonging should start from the minute the person accepts the job, no matter what no matter how long the runway is until day one. For government agencies, it's longer than others. But, you know, they're now focusing, and I love this, the focus is now, how do we make them feel that they belong from the first day they say, yes, I'm in? And that's something that we haven't done in the past. Sorry.
Well, yeah, we talk about it all the time. I mean, just something so simple as have the CEO send a written letter to the new person after they accept the job, before they start. Welcome, you know, welcome to the company. Nobody's ever gotten that before. When they get something as simple as that, yes, don't email it. Don't put it in their onboarding kit. Send them a letter. It's going to be the only thing they get that day that's not going to be a credit card offer. And it says, welcome to the company. They're going to say, wow, I've never had anything like this before. I think this is going to be a different kind of a place.
Really, I've never had a letter before.
I was going to say, how about a handwritten thank you or welcome instead of a text or an email?
Yeah,
sure.
Anytime you get those now, it's wow. Somebody actually sat down and wrote a thank you card to me.
Yep, I got a written thank you note yesterday from somebody, and where is it? In the garbage? No, it's right here in front of me.
Well, I always used to find it ironic that one of the first things you do in orientation back then was to have them read the employee handbook. Oh my God, what a boring thing to have to read.
That should be something that you have to do if you get sent to detention.
People only read an employee handbook when they want something or they're in trouble. And this is an employee handbook that you use during onboarding at one of my former clients. Here's first impression: organization charts and job descriptions.
Right.
It's blank. It's blank. Yeah. It says, enthusiasm is one of our credos. Enthusiasm is the greatest business asset in the world. It beats money and power and influence. Enthusiasm tramples over opposition, storms its objectives, and overwhelms all obstacles. Enthusiasm is faith in action, faith to remove barriers and achieve the miraculous. Enthusiasm is contagious, so carry it in your attitude and manner. It will increase productivity and will bring joy and satisfaction to our people. Enthusiasm brings results. That's an employee handbook.
I love that.
That's awesome. I thought you were going to go in the opposite direction.
So did I.
But that's right. It reminds me, Futurize, which I mentioned in my book, Hire, Inspire, and Fuel Their Fire, has this amazing employee handbook where it has cartoons and jokes and humor, and it's interactive, and they even teach you how to pronounce the name of the company. So it is something you actually want to,
right.
Not only do you want to read it, you want to show it to your family and friends because it's so different and cool and creative.
You can read this whole thing in 10 minutes.
Yeah, perfect.
The other piece that we've talked about in the book is ongoing onboarding, right? It's not just the first
day, first week, yeah.
Well, first day, first week, first month, because I think the numbers, we can do some fact checking, but approximately 46% of people that are voluntarily leaving are leaving within the first 12 months. And that number goes up in most of the service-related industries. So it's like, okay, I know this turnover thing's like $1 trillion problem. What if we could nip some of it in the bud? I just learned that, butt versus bud. I thought we were nipping.
You're so young. You're so young.
No nipping butts at work.
But
that's an HR issue.
We do those things. And then also to ask them, right, as they're coming into the organization, hey, what is it that you like? How do you like to get, thank you? How can we celebrate you? How can we do these things? Because that's another instance where no good deed goes unpunished. if you say, hey, Sanjay, we just got you an ice cream party. You're like, I hate ice cream. I'm lactose intolerant. This one, you're just like, oh, and I don't like being around people. Right? That might not have gone over so well.
Yeah.
It's also why we should survey our people at least once a year or two to find out how they perceive the organization.
Yeah.
And then respond to that survey.
I'm working with
some of the
I'm
best
working with a
practices
client
do it
who during the recruiting interview, they asked 4 questions kind of hidden in the interview. One of them, I don't remember the others, but they're just fun questions about them. Yeah, what's your favorite color? Just silly things like that. But one of the questions is, it's 3 o'clock, what's your favorite snack? And on day 1, that snack, no matter what they say, is at their desk. And, I know it's such a silly little thing, but I think it's just such a powerful way of saying, we heard you,
And I think doing something like that on the first day is so much better than doing it after the 3rd year when they've had a miserable experience, to kind of make up for it. If you start things off like that, say, here's what it's going to be like to work here. Then, to Pete's point, you really nip in the bud that early turnover, which is the most costly of all.
I used to ask my audiences to raise their hand if they have an orientation program, and maybe half of them would. And I'd say, no, you're wrong. You all have one. You just don't know it. And It could be your worst employee is indoctrinating your new employee. Or you just say, good luck with that, and leave them alone and have them just flounder in the ethos. And it's just, you have an orientation onboarding program. So you might.
John should have paid his internet.
So yeah, just in terms of the connections, like I think it really comes down to respect. When we truly treat people with respect and make them feel belong, I mean, it's amazing what can happen. Going back to another quick FedEx example, like I said, I have a team of 15 drivers. As you can imagine, especially in this time of the economic cycle, there is ridiculously high turnover in the truck driving industry. We've had 0 turnover in a year.
Wow.
And people don't believe me when I tell them that. We went through the Christmas peak. We've hit this recession. We have 0 turnover. And we're not doing anything special. We're not like babying our drivers. We're not overpaying them. We pay them fair. We treat them fair. And it reciprocates. There's times where they get to go home at 2 o'clock on a Friday because it's slower. And there's times where they're staying and working until 7. And they get both sides of it because it's common sense and it's respect.
Yeah,
So,
but Sanjay, you do things that be above and beyond.
Absolutely, but it's all the stuff we talk about in here. It's nothing new. Like I show up with a handwritten card every time, or a handwritten note every time it's one of my drivers' birthdays, right? And I'll play with them, and now they know it because I've been doing it for over a year, so they kind of look for me on their birthday. But you know what? Great, if that's what it costs at a $50 gift card, it's not about the money; it's about the sense of belonging.
Yeah.
It's the gesture, right? And I think what you're saying, Sanjay, I mean, the things you do aren't over the top, right? They're not these huge, grand. They're just the simple, consistent moments.
Yeah, there's 2 new things that exist out there. One is the adaptation of, or the adaptation, I should say, of the ombudsman within the organization, right? Somebody who's always attentive to what's happening in the organization and is being attentive and then spreading that news and information out to the leadership of the organization. The other aspect of that is an individual or a role that's quite honestly called human experience, the human experience of being employed by this particular organization. That's a huge change from human resources or human capital, that human experience. What are they actually living through every day that they're at their jobs, right? And so gathering that and making a difference and trying to, take those steps forward. Those are the things that they're going to really kind of transform organizations going forward.
Yeah. Well, I knew it was going to happen, guys. I knew that this would not be nearly enough time in this container to get everything out. Just some closing words about the book, when we can expect it, let me go around once, and the 3 of you, and just tell us, please, in 50 words or less, just, I've read the book. What am I going to walk away with?
You're going to be energized. You're going to have hope. You're going to be inspired and say, wow, what the heck? My organization could or should be doing this. I gotta go walk into my boss's office and say, hey boss, work doesn't have to suck. Look at this. And here's a game plan."
Okay, you're cut off. That was 50 words. John?
Oh, I echo that exact sentiment. I think what we said at the very beginning is this is more than just a book, it's a toolbox.
Excellent.
And
Sounds like
it's not just belaboring one of the problems and having theories. It's telling you, here's a process, here's a tool, here's a procedure, here's a simple action like, put your butt on the line.
Ask these guys to do 50 words or less just doesn't happen.
All right, okay. Dave, you have 6 words left.
Yeah.
Go, Dave.
I would just say, quite honestly, it's a series of best practices, folks. This is what the workplace of the future is all about.
It's pragmatic.
Excellent. We need to wrap up, guys.
Speaking of the future, 2 weeks from today is July. I'm going to get the month right this time. July the 26th. And we'll be back and see everyone then, okay?
Yeah, and you never know what the topic will be. Thank you so much
That's
for
right.
being here, guys.
Thanks, everyone. See
Thank you,
at the
John,
other
Pete,
Wednesday.
Dave, and to our guests, as always, thank you.
Thank you to all 3 of you.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all.